Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever stopped to question what it means to be nice? Society has taught us that being nice is a virtue, a currency of acceptance, but is it truly? Niceness, you see, is often a surface-level performance. It's a mask we wear not for the benefit of others, but to avoid conflict, to maintain appearances, and to seek validation. When it comes to relationships, particularly with men, this facade of niceness can become a trap. It's a script handed to you: smile, nod, accommodate, agree. But what if I told you that by merely being nice you are doing a disservice not only to yourself but to others as well? Niceness is not kindness. Niceness is compliance, kindness is courage. The difference lies in authenticity. Niceness says, I will say and do what you want so you will like me. Kindness says, I will speak and act truthfully, even if it challenges you, because I respect you enough to be real. And so I propose you stop being nice to men, or anyone for that matter. Instead, be honest. Be whole. Be rooted in your truth. Being honest is not cruelty. It's not about confrontation or being harsh. Honesty is simply clarity, like a calm lake that reflects the sky as it is, not as it wishes it to be. Speak with clarity. Express your needs without fear. If something doesn't sit right with you, say so. Now, honesty often frightens people because it requires vulnerability. But vulnerability is where true connection lies. A man does not grow from the comfort of your niceness, he grows from the clarity of your truth. Niceness is an anesthetic. Honesty, though it may sting, is a healer. But there's something deeper still. You must be whole in yourself. This means recognizing your worth is not dependent on anyone's opinion of you, not a man's approval, not society's expectations, not even your own inner critic. When you stop outsourcing your value, you reclaim your power. Wholeness requires boundaries. And boundaries are not walls to keep others out, but a framework that says, this is who I am, and this is how I deserve to be treated. A man who respects your boundaries respects you. Let us dispel a myth: being truthful and whole does not repel the right people, it repels the wrong ones. The man who is meant to walk beside you will not only withstand your truth, he will cherish it. He will not shrink in the face of your boundaries, he will honor them. So I say again, stop being nice. Stop performing, pleasing, and placating. Instead, cultivate honesty. Practice kindness. Embody your wholeness. Because when you live from your truth, you stop seeking relationships to complete you. Instead, you find relationships that complement you. And that, my friends, is where freedom begins. Niceness is a concept we often confuse with kindness, yet they are fundamentally different. Niceness, at its core, is rooted in the need for social acceptance and the avoidance of discomfort. It is an act of conformity, a way of saying and doing what is expected to maintain harmony or win approval. While it may appear noble on the surface, niceness often masks a deeper fear of rejection or conflict. It is an external performance, not an internal truth. Kindness, on the other hand, comes from a place of sincerity and courage. It is grounded in authenticity and is motivated by genuine care for others, not by a desire to control perceptions or outcomes. When we act nice, we are often more concerned with how we are perceived than with the true impact of our actions. We smile when we don't mean it, agree when we disagree, and accommodate others, even when it goes against our own needs or values. Niceness is a strategy, not a virtue. It is a way to keep the peace at the expense of our authenticity. Yet this superficial harmony is fragile. When we prioritize being nice, we risk creating relationships and interactions that lack depth because they are built on pretense rather than truth. Kindness, however, is an entirely different approach. It does not demand that we agree with everyone or avoid conflict at all costs. Instead, it asks us to be genuine, even when it is uncomfortable. Kindness is the willingness to tell someone the truth because you value them enough to be honest, not because it is the easiest thing to do. It means offering support that truly helps, not just what makes you look good or feel good in the moment. Kindness is an expression of care that seeks to uplift others without losing oneself in the process. One of the traps of niceness is that it often stems from a place of self-preservation. We are nice because we fear what might happen if we are not. Perhaps we fear being seen as rude, unlikable, or uncooperative. Niceness becomes a shield to protect us from discomfort, but in doing so it also isolates us from authentic connections. When we prioritize being liked over being real, we end up sacrificing our own needs, desires, and even our sense of self. In contrast, kindness requires us to be vulnerable. It asks us to step out from behind the mask of niceness and show up as we truly are. This is not always easy. Vulnerability means being willing to express our opinions, even if they are unpopular. It means setting boundaries, even if they might disappoint others. It means admitting when we are wrong and taking responsibility for our actions. These acts of kindness can be challenging because they require us to let go of our need for control and perfection. Yet it is through this vulnerability that genuine relationships are formed. Another critical difference between niceness and kindness is their impact on others. Niceness often seeks to avoid discomfort, not just for ourselves but for others as well. We think we are being considerate by withholding the truth or softening our words, but in reality we may be doing more harm than good. For example, being nice might mean telling a friend what they want to hear instead of what they need to hear. While this may feel like the kind thing to do in the moment, it ultimately deprives them of the opportunity to grow or face reality. Kindness, however, is willing to risk temporary discomfort for the sake of long-term benefit. It is the difference between offering a bandage for a wound and helping someone heal it. Niceness can also create an imbalance of power in relationships. When we are overly nice, we may find ourselves constantly giving while receiving little in return. This is not because others are inherently selfish, but because niceness often teaches people to take us for granted. When we fail to express our true feelings or set boundaries, we unintentionally communicate that our needs are less important than theirs. Kindness, on the other hand, is rooted in mutual respect. It values the needs of others without diminishing our own. By being kind, we create relationships that are more balanced, where both parties feel seen, heard, and valued. Niceness is about appearances, while kindness is about substance. Niceness aims to maintain a facade, but kindness seeks to create genuine connection and understanding. This difference is subtle, yet profound. It challenges us to move beyond the superficial and engage with others and ourselves on a deeper level. It is not always easy to make this shift, especially in a world that often rewards niceness and punishes honesty. However, by choosing kindness over niceness, we not only honor our own authenticity, but also contribute to a culture of honesty, respect, and true care. Vulnerability is often misunderstood in a world that equates strength with invulnerability and power with unyielding control. To many, being vulnerable feels like exposing oneself to harm or judgment, an act of weakness rather than courage. Yet vulnerability is not weakness, it is the birthplace of authentic connection, trust, and growth. It is the willingness to be seen as you truly are, without the armor of pretense or perfection. Vulnerability allows for honesty, emotional depth, and the courage to show up fully in life and relationships. It is not about oversharing or making yourself unnecessarily exposed, but about embracing the risks inherent in living authentically. Vulnerability requires a tremendous amount of courage because it challenges the deeply ingrained fear of rejection or judgment. It is far easier to build walls to protect ourselves from pain than to risk the discomfort of being honest. However, these walls, while keeping out potential harm, also prevent meaningful connection. When we shield ourselves from vulnerability, we shield ourselves from the very experiences that make life rich and fulfilling. Whether it is expressing love, admitting a mistake, or sharing a dream, vulnerability invites others into our world and creates space for genuine relationships to flourish. In the context of relationships, vulnerability is the foundation of intimacy and trust. Without vulnerability, we can only relate to others on a superficial level, hiding our true selves behind a mask of what we think they want us to be. This creates a disconnection that can leave us feeling unseen and misunderstood. Vulnerability, on the other hand, allows us to reveal our fears, hopes, and desires, fostering a deeper understanding and acceptance. It requires us to let go of control and the need to be perceived in a certain way, opening the door to relationships that are not only more authentic, but also more resilient. Boundaries, like vulnerability, are often misunderstood. They are not about keeping people out or creating distance for the sake of isolation. They are about defining what is acceptable and unacceptable in our interactions. Boundaries are a reflection of self-respect and self-awareness. They communicate our needs and values, ensuring that we can maintain a sense of balance and well-being in our relationships. Far from being a barrier, boundaries create a framework for healthy, respectful connections. Setting boundaries requires vulnerability because it often involves difficult conversations and the risk of pushback or misunderstanding. It means being willing to say no, to express discomfort, or to assert your needs, even when it feels easier to stay silent or agreeable. Yet boundaries are essential for protecting your emotional and physical well-being. They are a way of saying, "This is where I end," and you begin without boundaries, relationships can become imbalanced, with one person overextending themselves while the other takes more than they give. Boundaries are also a gift to others, even if they do not always seem so initially. When you set a boundary, you are being honest about your limitations and expectations, which allows others to engage with you in a way that is more respectful and genuine. It eliminates confusion and resentment, creating a space where both parties can feel valued and understood. While boundaries may sometimes be met with resistance, they ultimately lead to stronger, healthier relationships because they are rooted in mutual respect. Vulnerability and boundaries are deeply interconnected. Vulnerability allows us to identify and communicate our boundaries, while boundaries create a safe space for vulnerability. Together, they form the foundation of authentic living. Vulnerability invites others to see us as we truly are, while boundaries ensure that we are treated with the respect and care we deserve. Without vulnerability, boundaries can become rigid walls that isolate us from connection. Without boundaries, vulnerability can leave us feeling exposed and unprotected. In practice, embracing vulnerability and setting boundaries can feel like a balancing act. It requires discernment to know when to open up and when to hold firm. This balance is not about being perfect, but about being intentional. It means recognizing that not everyone deserves access to your vulnerability and that not every boundary needs to be unyielding. It is a dynamic process of learning and growth, one that evolves as you deepen your understanding of yourself and your relationships. A common fear in embracing vulnerability and setting boundaries is the potential for rejection or conflict. However, it is important to remember that these practices are not about controlling how others respond, but about honoring your truth. Not everyone will respond positively to your vulnerability or respect your boundaries, and that is okay. What matters is that you are living in alignment with your values and creating a space for relationships that are rooted in authenticity and mutual respect. Those who truly value you will not only accept your vulnerability and boundaries, but will also appreciate the clarity and depth they bring to your connection. Living from a place of truth and wholeness is an act of profound courage and self-respect. It requires stepping away from the external pressures and expectations that constantly try to shape who we are. Society often demands that we conform, fit in, and play roles that may not align with our authentic selves. But living truthfully means shedding these illusions, breaking free from the narratives imposed upon us, and embracing who we truly are, flaws, strengths, and all. It is not about perfection, but about integrity, about aligning our actions and choices with the core of who we are. Truthfulness begins with self-awareness. To live truthfully, you must first understand your values, desires, and boundaries. This requires introspection and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths about yourself. What are the things that truly matter to you? What are the fears or beliefs holding you back? Living from truth demands honesty, not only with others, but more importantly, with yourself. It is not about being unchanging, but about being real, about showing up as your most authentic self in every situation. When you live from truth, you stop seeking validation from others. Many people spend their lives chasing approval, believing that their worth depends on how others perceive them. This creates a cycle of self-betrayal where decisions are made not based on personal values but on what will gain acceptance or avoid criticism. Living truthfully breaks this cycle. It recognizes that your worth is intrinsic, not something to be earned or proven. When you live in alignment with your truth, you realize that external validation is fleeting and often hollow. True peace and confidence come from within. Living truthfully also requires courage because it often means going against the grain. There will be times when your truth does not align with what others expect of you. You may face criticism, rejection, or misunderstanding. But living authentically is not about pleasing everyone, it is about honoring yourself. This does not mean being reckless or disregarding others' feelings. It means expressing yourself with honesty and compassion, even when it is difficult. It means being willing to take the path less traveled if it is the one that resonates with your soul. Wholeness, on the other hand, is about embracing the totality of who you are. It is the understanding that you are not defined by a single role, achievement, or failure, but by the entirety of your experiences, emotions, and choices. Wholeness rejects the idea that you need to be fixed or completed by something or someone outside yourself. It recognizes that you are already complete, even as you continue to grow and evolve. Embracing wholeness means accepting all parts of yourself, the light and the dark, the strengths and the vulnerabilities. Too often, we try to hide or suppress the aspects of ourselves that we deem unworthy or undesirable. We believe that to be loved or accepted, we must present only the polished, perfect version of ourselves. But this denial creates a sense of fragmentation, a feeling that we are never enough. Wholeness, by contrast, is about integration. It is about acknowledging and honoring every part of yourself, even the parts that are still a work in progress. When you live from wholeness, you approach life with a sense of balance and self-assurance. You no longer look for relationships, achievements, or possessions to complete you, because you recognize that fulfillment comes from within. This shifts the way you interact with the world. Instead of seeking to fill a void, you approach relationships and opportunities from a place of abundance. You are able to give and receive without fear of losing yourself in the process. Living truthfully and from a place of wholeness also transforms your relationships. When you are grounded in your truth, you attract people who value you for who you truly are, not for the facade you present. These relationships are deeper and more meaningful because they are built on authenticity. Similarly, when you embrace your wholeness, you are better able to accept others for who they are. You no longer need them to fit a mold or meet unrealistic expectations because you are not relying on them to complete or define you. This way of living also fosters resilience. Life is full of challenges, and there will be times when things do not go as planned. When you are rooted in your truth and wholeness, you are better equipped to navigate these difficulties. You are not easily shaken because your sense of self is not dependent on external circumstances. Instead, you draw strength from the knowledge that you are enough, just as you are. Living from truth and wholeness is about freedom. It is the freedom to be yourself without apology or pretense. It is the freedom to pursue a life that aligns with your values and passions. And it is the freedom to create relationships and experiences that nourish you rather than diminish you. This way of living is not always easy, but it is always worth it. It is a path that leads to deeper fulfillment, stronger connections, and a more profound sense of peace.